Hello, and welcome to Heart Containers, a daily podcast where we discuss the latest Nintendo news every Monday through Friday. I'm your host, Rami Fawaz, and this is the episode for Thursday, February 14th. Wow, what a day yesterday was. We finally got that Nintendo Direct, and boy, was it a special moment for Nintendo. I mean, Link's Awakening? Yeah, I'm going to pull that out right away. What a stellar option to end a direct with. No one saw that coming. I didn't hear a single person leaking or even whispering that this could be a potential thing to come out from the Nintendo Direct. And boy, did it turn a lot of heads. I can't wait to get into all of that today and more. But if this is your first time listening to Heart Containers, I just want to say welcome and thank you for checking in. As you might expect, each show begins with a rundown of the top headlines from the day before, which means we're going to be talking about Nintendo Direct Mania today. So let's kick off today's show with the daily Nintendo report.
Well, the wait is over. This is Nintendo DS. My body is ready.
We would like to play.
A way to make 3D games a reality.
And it's called the Wii U Game Pen.
I want to start off by talking about the good stuff. Nintendo showed off a handful of new footage for many of their first party games releasing this year, games that we knew about, games that we did not know about. And right off the bat, Super Mario Maker 2, a game, of course, that it was not announced up until this point, but there were rumblings, there were rumors. We talked about this earlier in the week, and this was a game that was brought up, although I was never certain if this is something we were going to see for sure. I mean, the moment the Switch came about, the moment the Switch was even announced in the first place, people have been begging for Mario Maker, the original for the Wii U, to be ported over to the Switch because it just makes so much sense. The original Mario Maker is a fantastic game. I mean, it's not every day that Nintendo decides to take part of their tool set that they use to make their own games and say, hey, you know what? You can use it. You can be the designer. You get to feel like Miyamoto and play while designing. Make your own Mario campaign. And that's what Super Mario Maker was able to capture, but it was limited in multiple fashions. One, it was stuck on the Wii U, a console with a very small user base. Now, they did try to remedy that a little bit by taking the game and porting it onto the 3DS, but even then, for both of those games, they were very much hamstrung by their online capabilities, and I'm hoping that Super Mario Maker 2 does not make that same mistake. We didn't learn that much about the game. They showed a few minutes of gameplay footage. They told us it was releasing sometime in June, and in the footage itself, you could see like new bad guys, new mechanics, new features being shown off. Something that really stuck in my mind was that you saw the new old, basically the cat costume from Super Mario 3D World. So they're bringing in 3D World elements in there. You can go and play as a cat. So that, I mean, that's pretty exciting stuff. I also saw like those clear tubes running around. So it does seem like they're taking a lot of inspiration from 3D World, and I'm excited about it. This is exactly what they had to do to call it a sequel, is to add new stuff in that way. But I really wanted to find out more about the online capabilities of this because, in my opinion, that's going to make or break this game. They need a decent way, a better way to sift through the content of the games that were, or the levels that were made with the original Mario Maker. And if they don't deliver that, that's going to be kind of frustrating for me, but I'm still very excited to learn more about this game. I can't wait because Mario Maker is, again, a game that is very, very good for touchscreens, very good for the Nintendo Switch. And it's also really cool to see what they did with the UI. You can see the little turn wheels and stuff because, you know, this is going to be the first Mario Maker where you're not guaranteed to be playing with a touchscreen at all times. So they started off with Mario Maker. They moved in to Yoshi's Crafted World, a game that we know about. It's coming out at the end of March 29th, but they shadow dropped. They said there's a demo out right now. You can play one of the first worlds, or if not the very first world, something that they did throughout the entire Direct. It was actually really, really incredible. Full games, downloads, demos, bam, bam, bam. You can play so much now, and I tried. I only played one game, actually, after the Direct, and we're going to get to that game later, and I sucked brutally at it. But the amount of stuff that they launched during and after the Direct unprecedented for Nintendo. Yoshi's Crafted World, that demo was one of them. Again, they also showed off a couple new mechanics where they were saying, "Hey, you can be on a car, you can drive with the perspective away." Like it was interesting. I think Yoshi's Crafted World is doing a good enough job for me to separate itself from Yoshi's Woolly World that I'm into it, because I played Yoshi's Woolly World and all, respect to that game, but honestly, it just seemed like, hey, it's Yoshi's turn to take Kirby's Epic Yarn and do its thing with it. And it did some cool things, but I really wanted it to have its own identity, and I was worried that Crafted World would kind of just be a reskin and just like, hey, you like the yarn idea, this is paper, but it looks like they're doing a little bit more with that, and I'm pleased. And one thing that they showed off that I really enjoyed were the crafted costumes that you can unlock now. They're basically boxes, so instead of just coloring your yarn different pattern with different patterns and designs, you basically like wear these box cars. That's kind of what they look like, and they showed off a handful of them. They said there was going to be like 180 or something like that. One of them was like just two sheep on the side of your Yoshi, and they kind of just follow you around. It looks so adorable, so fun. That is a game that landed on my radar. I still don't know if it's going to be worth it. I mean, we're going to have to wait and see for more info, but definitely the Direct helped. Another game which the Direct just propelled to the stratosphere for me, Fire Emblem Three Houses. I talked yesterday about how I was very uncertain about Fire Emblem, and I was speaking way too soon. I was completely wrong. We had barely seen anything about it, and now that we know more, I am so excited. I've never been this excited for a Fire Emblem game. So the premise, what they're doing now, of course, is they have three houses. They're split into the Black Eagles, the Blue Lions, and the Golden Deer. Basically, they signify the three separations in the land of the overall continent of this Fire Emblem game. And you actually play as this person who lives in the middle of the land where there is a school of some sort. Very much reminded me of Hogwarts. And you are I don't know, you're probably a badass of some sort. You play as the professor at the school, and you get to pick one of those three houses to kind of run with. Like, you are the commander of that house. You get your own students, you get to build your own party, you get to teach those students certain things. And as I was watching this, it suddenly clicked, like, oh, wait a second, I don't know why it didn't click before. Three Houses is very similar to what they did with Fates and having three separate games, and how they said, okay, if you want to play Birthright, that's for one type of Fire Emblem fan, and also it tells you one story, and Conquest did another, and Revelations, I think, was the third one, did the last one. And a common complaint for that game, or for those grouping of games, were that people had to pay 3 times to experience everything. Plus there was DLC. I mean, it could get very pricey to play Fire Emblem Fates. And now it seems like they're doing all the right things. I would assume you're going to have a similar experience where one house will play one way, a different house will play a different way, and they'll tell their own unique stories too. And the only way to really get the whole 360 picture is to play the games through 3 times. But you have it all in front of you. You pay for it once. That's fantastic. I love the art style. Fire Emblem has been notorious for switching art styles like 20 times in the same game. You have like these super nice rendered cutscenes, but then you go to the comic book strip type of title boxes, and then the 3D model version. Like, it can get jarring at times, but everything I saw in this game, like, sure, there were differences between the cutscenes and, like, let's say the actual battle animations, but it was so nice, so crisp. Nothing looked particularly jarring in any way. And the best part about this, the thing that got me, like, propelled my excitement for this game, was definitely the school, was definitely this idea of being a professor running with, again, this Hogwarts idea with the houses and all that jazz. That speaks right up my alley. The customization that you seem to have with your students, like, you can teach them and say, like, hey, I'm going to teach you, and then you can be a horseback rider. So then maybe you can be like a cavalier when we're out there on the battlefield, or you can wield this sword or that sword. It's unlike anything that I've ever seen from a Fire Emblem game, and it's taken this from what I was worried might be a rushed game to one that I think has the potential to define Fire Emblem for future generations. And that also kind of makes sense, because what came along with this news was the update that, hey, they're actually going to miss the spring deadline. I believe this is the second time they actually kind of pushed this game back a little bit, although the first time they didn't really have a concrete release date. Now they're saying no longer spring, but summer. July 26th is the date. And you're going to hear July, June, summer a lot when you look at these games. So I believe the second half of this year for Nintendo is crazy. And finally, the last first party game that I really want to nail, the last first party developed game that I really want to nail is, of course, The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. Who could have guessed? Who could have guessed? We knew that Eiji Aonuma, the series producer of the Zelda series, said that they're working on top-down Zelda. They're working on that. But we didn't know what it was going to be, what was going to come after A Link Between Worlds. I assumed that they were just going to do a sequel. Well, not a direct sequel, but like the next iteration, a new world, a new story, new everything. Because why not? Especially because A Link Between Worlds was already kind of a reimagining of A Link to the Past. Yes, there were enough new mechanics and new design choices in that game to set itself apart, but it did use the same world and a lot of the same beats, same locations. So I thought for sure we were going to get something completely new, but instead, Nintendo amazes me, pulls one out of the hat, pulls a trick, a rabbit out of the hat and says, no, we're going to go back to Link's Awakening. And I respect this decision so much because the 3D Zelda games have gotten so much love over the past few years or past few generations and being remastered and re-released. And even now, a lot of people were talking last year about how they wanted to see Skyward Sword HD be brought over. And then here's Nintendo saying, you know what? No Skyward Sword HD. Here's Link's Awakening HD. Bravo for pulling that out there. Link's Awakening, it looked great. It was a bit jarring at first. Honestly, I was shocked by how it looked because it's plasticky. I think that's the best way to describe it. The art style they're going for is very not cartoony. It's plasticky. It's sharp. It's looks like a toy almost. When I was watching Link cut through bushes and grass, it honestly looked like he was cutting through Lego grass. But it didn't bother me very much because although it does look very plastic, it's also still very well animated at the same time. So it has like an endearing quality to it. You kind of get this feeling that, it's trying, it's being fun, it's being lighthearted, there's levity in there, and I respect it. But it actually is kind of funny when you think about how drastic Nintendo and the Zelda franchise in particular has been with its art style over the years. It's like, why does it always feel the need to do that? Not that I'm complaining, but if you look at all the different art styles we've seen with The Legend of Zelda, it's fascinating how they make these decisions, and they're still, after all this time, able to throw up a new art style, and people look at it and say, wait, what? That looks weird. That looks a little different, even though they've tried so many thus far. So Link's Awakening was definitely the kicker. I mean, that was the last reveal, the very end of the show, the thing that most people are talking about. I'm very happy about it. Now, granted, I don't have the nostalgia for Link's Awakening that many people do. I did not play Link's Awakening when it came out. I played it much later after I'd already played games like A Link to the Past, which was my very first Zelda, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, the original. So I don't have a lot of the affinity for this game as many other people. I recently played it again when it came out on Virtual Console for the 3DS, and I think it's a good Zelda. I don't love it. I don't think it's my favorite Zelda. I wouldn't even say it's in my top 5 favorite Zelda. So part of me, even though I am very excited, as you can probably tell, part of me is a tiny bit disappointed just because I really did want to see what the top-down Zelda team could bring to the table next. And all of the footage I've seen from this game so far, although it has that plasticky art style, does seem like it's just Link's Awakening. Like I haven't seen anything that stepped outside of that zone that was designed in any different way, shape, or form. Although Nintendo's calling this a modern reimagining, take whatever you will from that. It seemed like, the dungeon play, for instance, I remember those dungeon layouts from playing on the 3DS most recently, and I'm like, oh yeah, that looks pretty much exactly how I remember it being. So again, it shouldn't ruin anyone's excitement. If you haven't played this game, of course, you should still be very, very excited for it. But for me personally, I don't have that connection. So part of me, a very small part of me, really wanted this to be just a new version, but I can't complain, man. It's Link's Awakening. How wild is that? So those were the big first-party Nintendo-developed games that they discussed, that some of them were announced, some of them were just updating us on during the Direct. Now I want to talk about outside of Nintendo, but not wholly outside of Nintendo. Let's start with the published games. We got more from Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, The Black Order. Personally, I thought it looked a lot better than it originally did at the Game Awards when they first showed it off. I don't know what it was, but when I saw it at the Game Awards, I remember thinking that it looked really ugly. But now it looks great. I like it a lot, and I love what they were doing with the Captain Marvel advertising basically, because Captain Marvel comes out next month and they're saying, hey, you can play as Captain Marvel in this game and she's just as cool as she is in the movie. Great. I'm a big Marvel fan, so I'm definitely going to be keeping my eyes on this one. Hopefully it gets good reviews, because I'm not super into it, but I'm going to make sure that if it is a great game, I'm going to be on it. And another Nintendo published game, Damon Ex Machina. Damien Ex Machina? Damon Ex Machina. You tell me how to pronounce that. This game is so weird. It's like, I don't know what to think about it. It looks like Gundam, Transformers, Iron Man all rolled into one. It looks single player while also being multiplayer. I don't know. They talked about it more. They said it was coming out in the summer, and this was another one of those games where it's a, hey, there's a demo that you can play right now. You can go play the prototype mission if you're interested, and it is only available for a limited time. So if you are at all interested in this game, you should get on that sooner rather than later. And they also mentioned that some people who beat the demo, who get through to the demo, will be contacted with like a survey. So you might even be able to get your input on how the game actually finishes, or you might be able to put your say into it and help them develop this game so that it ends up being great. I don't really have a strong opinion on it either way. I'm not sure if this is a game that is for me. It doesn't feel that way, but the best part about it, the thing that gets me the most excited, is the multiplayer, and I still have yet to hear that much about it. Besides the Nintendo published games, we had a ton of third parties from all over the place, starting with Hellblade. I would never would have guessed that Hellblade would make its way over to Nintendo in any way, shape, or form. I mean, the original Hellblade came out in 2017 for modern day consoles, except Nintendo, so PS4 and Xbox One. And Ninja Theory, the developer who worked on Hellblade, I mean, they got a lot of praise for that game, but they were also recently bought by Microsoft. And I thought to myself, okay, that must be the end of that company being able to publish games on other platforms. Apparently not so. Hellblade is coming to the Nintendo Switch, and it's coming sooner rather than later. This might be the last Ninja Theory game that you can play on a Switch, if Microsoft has any say in it, if they're definitely going to start making those exclusive developers. But hey, there you go. That was your your third party surprise. We got some third parties that were not surprising. Mortal Kombat, we got a release date. They said it's going to release hand in hand with the other consoles in the US, which is good, because that doesn't seem to be the case in other territories. Assassin's Creed 3. Finally, I can finally sit here and tell you guys that all of those rumors, all of those leaks are true. Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered is coming to Nintendo Switch. Okay. I mean, you would think by the amount of times that I had to talk about this story that I must love this game, but I think it's okay. I played it on the Wii U, actually, and I do agree with most people in saying that it is probably one of the more mediocre Assassin's Creed. I would have preferred the other ones, but what does sweeten the deal a little bit is that the full extent of the rumor was true. It's not just Assassin's Creed 3, it's Assassin's Creed 3 Liberations Remastered. It's the PS Vita game that got brought over to the other consoles, but never to the Wii U or the Switch, and now you get both for the price of one. I don't have a quote on that, so don't quote me. Dragon Quest Builders 2, a game that's already out in Japan, that's doing wonders in Japan. Well, that's coming over out west, and I don't think there was ever a doubt about that, because Dragon Quest Builders, the first one, actually did really well in North America, in the Western territories, and I'm glad to see it, because Dragon Quest Builders is this weird mishmash of being an RPG and a Minecraft game, and it kind of goes in both ends in a way that I really enjoyed. I mean, I didn't get to play it a lot, but my time spent in that game was super addicting. It nails it. It nails that progression feeling of just wanting to go more and wanting to build. No pun intended, right? The Dragon Quest Builders 2. And the thing that stood out to me about this announcement that I didn't actually know about Dragon Quest Builders 2 is that you can play with friends, so that you're going to be able to build a town or whatever it is that you do in Dragon Quest Builders 2, I think with a group of 3 people. And that puts it on my radar. Astral Chain. This is the mysterious platinum game that Emily Rogers was talking about. Again, another rumor. I mean, almost everything we heard about what's coming out soon, what's going to be announced at this Nintendo Direct, seems to have been true, which makes things a little bit interesting when you consider all the things that they said were going to be coming out in 2019 that were not announced in the Direct. And maybe we'll get to that a little bit later, but Astral Chain was one of them. It's Platinum's secret game. Could potentially be co-op. They were a little bit shy about it. If you don't know what this is, it was the game that they showed off right before Link's Awakening. It had just this bonkers setting where it looked like there were wearing police outfits, but they were all sci-fi, and then there were these monsters things. It looked like a hack and slash, but at the same time, there were people shooting bow and arrows and shooting guns too. It was all over the place. But then there were these moments where they would kind of like walk as if they were playing an open world game, and you would see these vistas that kind of reminded me of Blade Runner. And I'm like, oh man, okay. I'm not a hack and slash person, but this looks cool. Literally looks cool. I was impressed by the art style. The character design looked interesting, and now I'm on board, which is fascinating to me because I'm not really a Platinum developer fan. Like, not that they do bad things or make bad games, but I just don't typically enjoy the games that they like or that they make, which is why at first I was very skeptical about Astral Chain. But compared to Bayonetta 3, this is the one that I'm way more invested in. I'm excited to hear about it, and that's coming August 30th. And that was just some of the third parties. We got plenty more, but I categorized all of them as JRPGs because 2019 is going to be the year of the JRPG for Nintendo. Final Fantasy VII got a release date, March 26th. I don't know if we talked about this, but Nintendo already started advertising Final Fantasy VII in their Switch commercials, so we kind of knew that it was coming sooner rather than later, and now we know March 26th. I've never played Final Fantasy VII. That's likely going to be the one that I pick up because of all the hype around it. I gotta know what it's all about. I don't feel like playing 10 or 10-2 again. Man, those games can really be a slog, especially for me because I'm not that big into JRPGs. So 7 is the one that I'm going to give a shout out to. Coming soon, March 26th. But you know what's coming out sooner? Final Fantasy 9. It's out now, right now. They released it right after the Nintendo Direct. Man, what's with all of these just shadow drops, these releases that come out crazy? Final Fantasy 9 out right now. You can play it. I know nothing about Final Fantasy 9. Absolutely zero about Final Fantasy 9. If it wasn't for the fact that Final Fantasy 7 was coming out on March 26th, I probably would consider buying it. But you tell me about Final Fantasy 9 because honestly, I couldn't say a single thing about that game. I don't even know anything about the story. I've seen videos of it and I'm never impressed by it. Like the characters and the story arcs don't seem to interest me at all in the same way that some of the other Final Fantasy games do, but maybe I'm completely wrong about that. Then there was this huge spotlight singularly for Dragon Quest XI S Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition. Yes, the Dragon Quest game with the name that never ends. 11S Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition. Whew. They really needed to set this game apart because they announced basically yesterday that this game is going to have its own set of features. If you don't know, Dragon Quest XI has already come out for PS4, and this is it Square bringing it to Nintendo Switch. So I believe what they're doing here is saying, hey, no, this is a little bit different. We have new character stories we want to talk about. There are new options. They mentioned the option to kind of increase your battle speed, fully orchestrated music, and one that I thought was really awesome was the ability to switch at any moment from HD visuals to 16-bit. What? That's insane. That's like something you don't see. Like, can you imagine a game like Breath of the Wild just being able to like turn a trigger and then all of a sudden it looks like Link's Awakening, or it looks like the original Legend of Zelda, or A Link Between Past? That's ludicrous. But they showed it in action and I was like, oh my god, that works. That legitimately works. Like, you're fighting that slime guy and then you just turn it on and oh, okay. Nope, there you go. It's just a stack of slime guys in pixel art. That's coming this fall. They wanted us to be excited about it. They spent a lot of time talking about Dragon Quest XI S Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition, but I don't know. I mean, I've never played a Dragon Quest game. I feel like this would be a good opportunity to jump into it, especially on the Switch, which in my opinion is probably the best way to play JRPGs for someone like me because I'm more likely to finish them on the Nintendo Switch. But something about this game looks radically cool while also being very off-putting. Like, I love the overall look, the scope. It feels like an open world. It reminded me very much of Breath of the Wild when I saw, the horseback riding and the vistas and the towns and where you ran into. Some of the characters look really cool, but at the same time, the main character, I don't know what about it. He just looks like he has a baby face. He looks like he's 6 years old. He really does, and I cannot connect with him. The story looks so cliche. I mean, it's your typical JRPG, like I am a prince, forgotten and light and darkness, and I want something more than that now. Honestly, I need something more than that, especially when you're talking about games that last just in long times. 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 hours. I need a story that's going to hook me, that isn't your traditional average JRPG story, which is where Onikai Onaki there you go. Onaki comes in. Onaki is the next game from Tokyo RPG Factory, the guys who made I Am Setsuna. If you don't remember I Am Setsuna, I've never played it. That is actually a very important game for the Nintendo Switch. It was one of the first JRPGs to be available on the Nintendo Switch. I remember that. I think it came out in March. I just remember it being one of the only games that you could play after the Switch launched, and I played it, and I thought it was a lot of fun. I got through halfway of that game, and I have a lot of respect for Tokyo RPG Factory because I think they do a really good job. And Uninaki, Uni, Uninaka, this game, this game, whatever it is, seems to have this compelling story about death and rebirth, and also being able to go to the land of the dead. They call it something else, and bring them back and do all that stuff. That's cool. That fascinates me. I'm more into a story like that than the one in Dragon Quest XI S. Those were some of the really big titles we heard about. There was also a handful of small titles we heard about. Remember, that's also something that Emily Rogers talked about, how we're going to get more eShop titles. It's also something that Nintendo themselves mentioned them being interested in at the end of their third quarter financial briefing when they had that investor Q&A. They talked about the value of smaller experiences and about how they want to invest more in it. Well, here you go. They're putting their money where their mouth is. They announced Box Boy and Box Girl, the extension of the Box Boy franchise. It's a game, I think it's only really been on 3DS. I can't remember if there's ever been a Box Boy on Wii U. I don't think so. But there's been a handful of Box Boys on 3DS, and they're just good fun. They're just good fun. I wouldn't say that they're like intensely special, but they're definitely a good time. They're these puzzle games where you play as a box and you kind of like stretch yourself out to kind of make your way through the level, try to get from point A to point B. It kind of reminds me of Thomas Was Alone a little bit, if you've ever played that game. Well, this is the next iteration of that franchise. There's going to be a ton of new levels, and the twist this time around is that you can play in co-op. It's Box Boy and Box Girl. Another game that I didn't expect to see was Deltarune, which is the next game that's coming from the Undertale franchise. I don't know if it's a direct sequel. It looks like the gameplay is drastically similar, although the trailer that they showed off was cunning. It was smart. They showed off enough to let you know that this is the next, the spiritual successor at the very least to Undertale, without actually showing you anything, because they put that dog everywhere. It was nice. I appreciated it. Chapter 1 for this game is going to be download only, and it's coming out for free on February 28th. The rest of them, though, is going to cost money. So this is a kind of like a new thing for the Undertale guy. I can't remember his name, but Undertale obviously was a one-time buy. You buy it, you're done, you get everything. Now it's something new. We're going to be able to play chapter 1 for free, and then the rest of the chapters, I don't know if it's going to come in a bulk sum or just an iteration. Either way, Undertale is such a fascinating game filled with humor, and I'm sure after watching this trailer that Deltarune is going to be very similar. This is a game that is high on my wish list, and it's a game that I can play soon. I don't have to wait till summer like I do for almost every other one of these games. And the last smaller download title that I really want to mention, the Dark Horse, the one that came out of nowhere. I think this is the game that's going to get the most attention after Link's Awakening. Although, I mean, that can be argued, but still, I think so. Tetris 99. Oh man, no way did I think Nintendo was going to mention a Tetris game. 99 players compete together, and only one is left standing. That's right, this is a Tetris Battle Royale. What? Like, we live in this world where everyone's talking about Apex Legends and Fortnite and who's going to win the Twitch stream audience rating and all that stuff, and who's the better battle royale. And here Nintendo comes, not saying like, hey, we have this new big battle royale that's going to compete in this way. It's like, no, let's play Tetris, but let's play Tetris with 100 people. Incredible. Love it. The thing that I think is really interesting about this game is that it's exclusive to Nintendo Switch Online members. You actually get it for free. You can play it now. Another game that you can play now. You get it for free if you have Nintendo Switch Online. That is an interesting way of doing things. Not only do you get it for free, it's a game that it kind of requires online, so it makes a lot of sense that you're playing with 99 people. So yeah, you probably need to have an online connection. There's also going to be events that are scheduled for it, but when Nintendo was talking about how they're going to make sure that their online services keep looking like attractive to their consumer base. These are the type of decisions that are going to help them. These are the type of exclusive games like Tetris 99 that are so heavily focused on online communities that they're going to have events and multiplayer exclusivity. This is how you continue to build the interest in Nintendo Switch Online. And I'm sure that there are plenty of people, there are probably people out there, honestly, who don't have Nintendo Switch Online are going to hear about this game and are going to sub this month just to be able to play Tetris 99. So like this makes a whole lot of sense to me. And lastly, I want to finish up the Nintendo Direct news with a section solely dedicated to updates and DLC because there was a whole bunch of that as well. Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker getting a lot of updates. I love how much love they're giving this game. It could have been this one and done thing that they shoved in the corner on the Wii U, but no, they keep bringing it back. They ported it over to the Switch and the 3DS. You know, that's funny enough, but they ported it over. They brought it back in a way so that other people could try it, and now they're expanding the life even more. So all levels are currently co-op. Again, right now, it's been updated. You can play that co-op with your friends. Is perfect because my wife absolutely loves this game, and I know that she'll go crazy to be able to play. We could play together now. We can spend date nights playing Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker, and that's enough for me. But if that wasn't enough for them, they actually went ahead and say, hey, no, you're going to actually get special episode DLC is what they're calling it. On March 14th, they're going to bring new DLC to that game. That's going to bring more challenges and levels and just extra content. So they're continuing Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker, which it's funny because at this point, like, when do you release a sequel? That's my question. I mean, I'm not complaining about this. I'm sure that I'm going to be getting this game and I'm going to play this game with the special episode DLC co-op with my wife, like I mentioned. But at the same time, it's like, when do you just say, hey, you know, it's time for Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker 2? Another game that I really probably should have seen coming, but I didn't. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is getting version 3.0. They're calling it the Ultimate Update, arriving in spring. And I don't know why I didn't think that this was going to be happening, but when they talked about Smash Brothers when it released, they said the Spirit Board stuff, they said the new characters coming, Joker, and the new maps that come along with the characters, and for some reason I just thought that was it. That was it. That all the updates we were going to be getting were just going to be, you know, standard updates, balance fixes, you know, nothing too standard, but boy did they hype this up during the Nintendo Direct. Version 3.0 is apparently going to be a big deal, and they showed these blurry pictures that got people excited and said, hey, you should pay attention to this. And I'm going to take a wild stab. I looked at those blurry pictures that they were mentioning and saying, hey, things are coming. That looks eerily similar to the map builder, the level editor. I'm pretty sure that's what they were referring to, although again, I'm just making this judgment call off of looking at blurry images. And I haven't slept in a long time, so maybe I could be completely wrong. But the point is, whether or not the map editor is coming, that they're going to sustain this game with hefty, substantial, free content to make sure that it continues to be a source of entertainment, a recurring game that people continue to go back to over the long haul of the Switch. At least that's what I took from an announcement like this, and that's exactly what they need. Going back to Nintendo Switch Online and how they want to make sure that they turn these 1 month subbers to 12-month subbers is to continue to push things out like this. If you say something like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is going to continue to evolve with new features, new modes, new characters, all of that over time, then you're going to be so unlikely to unsub. Like, why would you unsub? Like, you know that a month or 2 months down the road, something could happen that you're going to be that you want to get into, and then maybe along the way in between those months a Tetris 99 comes out. This is really smart. I am curious to see what they say after a couple more quarters about how this might affect, how all of these decisions and how these games are talking about are going to affect the subscription counts, because that was a real concern for them. And I think these are the exact type of moves that you need to do with games like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which are so vitally important. That bravo Nintendo, because this is exactly what you want. And the last update DLC that I want to mention is for Starlink Battle for Atlas. It's a game that hasn't gotten a lot of love, but it has gotten some attention because of the Star Fox content in the Nintendo version of the game. You can play as Star Fox in the traditional R-Wing, and I haven't done it, but many people have said that it is some of the best Star Fox gameplay that's most true to the original Star Fox games on the SNES, on the N64 that you can play today. And that gets me excited. But they announced more missions coming to this game that revolve around the cruise. So I think in the actual game you play as Star Fox, and Star Wolf is in the game as well, in the main campaign for the Switch version. But now with this update, you're going to be playing as Peppy, Falco, and Slippy, and you're facing off against Star Wolf's crew of Andrew, Pigma, and Leon. So they're announcing a couple things there. I don't know. It's still probably not enough to convince me to buy this game unless it has like severe discount. Then maybe I'll try it. But the one thing that I want to mention here is that in the actual footage, they kind of threw it at the end here, and I don't hear a lot of people talking about it. They mentioned Starship Racing. They said you can race with your star. Once you get this new update for Starship Battle Atlas, you're going to be able to race. And they show these R-Wings racing on tracks. And I thought to myself, hey, wait a second. Aren't we supposed to be hearing about Star Fox Grand Prix? This seems eerily close to Star Fox Grand Prix. And of course, we didn't hear about it. We didn't get any news about Star Fox Grand Prix yesterday during the Direct. So I wonder what this means, honestly. I mean, this is just a stray thought at the end of this segment here about, I wonder if all of the huppabaloo, the hoopla surrounding a Star Fox Grand Prix has just stemmed over this one small part of this game. And the rest of it has been made up. Because I can't believe that Nintendo would be publishing a Star Fox racing game all on its own. And then, and pure coincidence, this other game that isn't a racing game at all involves DLC where you can play as Star Fox characters in R-Wings and race. That seems a little weird to me. But you know, I've talked about the Nintendo Direct for a long time now, and I could keep talking about it and keep talking about it, but I think I've covered the majority of the bases. It's time for me to propose to you guys what the question of the day will be for Thursday, February 14th. All right, the question of the day, it's a simple one. What did you think about yesterday's Nintendo Direct? Exactly what were you hoping for, maybe? Did it bother you that we did not get a single update on games like Animal Crossing or Pokemon or Luigi's Mansion? Or was the surprise Link's Awakening announcement enough to make everything worth it? How did Nintendo do yesterday? And if you want to participate in that discussion, make sure to stop by heartcontainerspodcast.com/question, where you can submit your own answer to the question of the day, as well as provide any other opinions you may have on the topics that we discussed, or even about the show itself. And you can also reach me personally on Twitter, where my handle is @RomeFawaz. That's ROMEFAWAZ. And that's everything. This has been Heart Containers for Thursday, February 14th. Thank you so much for joining me today. And make sure to tune in tomorrow, where we'll be back and we'll be discussing whatever wave of Nintendo news comes next.